Now, before we start working out with the criteria of taking control over the memory and start working out with the construct of how we can take inputs and we can start managing those particular inputs to the variables in a very effective way. Now, I can definitely tell you we need to just understand few more constructs in the print as a property and we have to work out. Okay, so just to see that you're technically catching up with certain kinds of standards in print, what we can understand and we can move out. Then we'll just get on with how we can declare the construct and composition of the variable declarations and data type identifications in Python. So I just wanted to follow these particular programs, which are very simple by nature. Okay, I'm saying os dot system. Then I'm just trying to say print now the same thing we have been fundamentally putting it with the delimiters and separators I've already shown you. Okay, just to recollect. Now, I just want to check one thing along with this particular string. Okay, just catch me very carefully. Along with this particular string, I want to give another parameter. Yesterday, we have seen that your print can take any number of arguments, yes or no? And you'll separate the arguments by what? Comma. So here you can just watch. I separated my arguments with comma only. These are all individual arguments. Do you agree with me? Now, in the same way, I want to give this argument. This is one single argument. Along with that, I want to give another particular argument. Let us say like some 34. Okay. Now, I want to give one more construct of the argument by simply putting it with plus of 34. Where actually this plus what I'm expecting in my Python print to be a concatenation operator. Okay, I'm expecting that it should be acting like a concatenation. I've already shown in my previous class that the Python prompt, we said something like air plus plane. It will give you air plane. It understands that operator automatically. Yes or no? That it is concatenation, it has to execute. Now, taking this as a criteria, let me just save it. I'm just pulling up my environment. You just watch this error. Okay, I want to catch up this error. So you need to always understand one thing. In this particular case, in my fourth line or fifth line of my criteria, it's saying it's the seventh line of my code. It is saying that must be a string, not integer. Now, what is the criteria of interpreter you watch? Your interpreter gave you the output of 3 lines. Okay, you should understand one thing. My actual output for all the print statements which are perfect by syntax have been generated. Okay. And if you look into this area, the statement where the error by syntax is encountered is immediately terminated with an error message. This will never happen in any kind of compiler based environment. So part of the program is in execution and part of the program where the error is there, it just went on by giving you certain kinds of suggestions here. So your suggestions in your particular Python may not be always straightforward, but we should understand it's saying type error. Type error means it's saying that I'm unable to understand some data type. Type error always represents towards misunderstanding of the data type as expected by Python. So if anybody says that Python does not has any data types, it's wrong. Python internally is managing its own common sense and intelligence to identify the errors. Am I clear with you? So whenever you see on your screen type error, you should always understand that Python is unable to process the data because it is technically unable to catch up with the kind of data type to which it belongs to. So this error indicates the type mismatching. I'll make it more clear. Data type mismatching in synchronization to the actual values in operation. So technically why this is happening is this operator is unable to get into the actual construct. So you should always understand this operator is unable to identify the value 34 as a string and is lacking the type conversion intelligence. Is lacking the type conversion intelligence from integer to string. Hence that error came. Therefore, what it is telling you, on the left side of the operator, it is recognizing that you are having a string. On the right side of the operator, you are having an integer. Therefore, it's saying that you should give me a string, not the integer. So we need to understand these constructs very carefully. Are you getting the clarity? Are you getting the clarity of the error? Now I want you to watch one thing, okay? We do not want this error to take place. We technically do not want this error to take place. So in such cases, the constructive solution is what? One of the mechanism is keep this in either double quotes or single quotes. Okay, that's another kind of criteria you can do. Because you converted that into a string by yourself. Am I clear with you? So how you really do that, that's up to you. Try to understand these particular constructs very carefully. Therefore, so what is the best way I should go with my criteria of my error management? Error management is purely in your hands, man. Now, another way you can work out, another way you can work out on this is, now you don't want to keep it as a string directly like this. Then in such case, at least call the string constructor and then convert it. Am I clear with you? Now, because you're not giving any kind of separator or any additional spaces, it's just directly getting concatenated. Now, if anybody says that Python does not cares any kind of constructional data type management, it's wrong. See, there are many people I've seen who say like Python does not has data types. If data types are not there, how the language can work? Don't say data types are not there. The more correct and appropriate statement is, in Python, we don't need to declare a data type. Means programmer doesn't need to declare a data type. That's a more correct statement to say. Am I clear with you? Rather than saying Python is not having any data type. No language can exist without having any particular data type. Either the language is saying that I will manage the data type, or the language is saying you manage the data type. That's a construct. Now, currently we are having a compiler of Python 3 and we're working with everything in the construct of Python 3 syntax only. Now, let me just, for your convenience of understanding one particular concept, I'm going with this one, okay? Now, actually, my code is now in Python second version. That's a second version syntax. Now, I'm just trying to execute my particular code with my Python 3 that is existing in my machine, let us say. Then technically it says missing parenthesis in call to print. And the latest versions of Python are a bit better. Long back, we never used to get any kind of wonderful messages like this. Now, at least now your latest Python will say like, did you mean print should be in these brackets? It's giving you some kind of hint that you better try to keep it in brackets. Okay, that's how they are making Python error management to be more clearer to the next generation programmers. Now, that's not a big criteria. You may say like, sir, when I'm basically having Python 3, why I will write the code in Python 2? Now, I'm not saying that, but imagine that you're having multiple interpreters on your machine. Means you're having Python 2, Python 3 interpreter. In the future, it may come with anything. All the different versions of your Python interpreters are there. Then I want to make my code subjectively to work for a particular version only. Currently, in my machine, I don't have multiple versions because I work on certain projects where I cannot keep multiple versions. Suppose say like you're having multiple versions. Now, this code you have written for which particular version? Tell me. You have written this code for which particular version? Second version. So I can always tell my Python that please use the second version interpreter and execute this code. Okay. If I'm having multiple interpreters in my particular machine, then I can always tell my Python, please execute this code calling that version of interpreter only. For that, I can always embed one small instructional criteria called as Python 2. So when I declare this in my first line of any Python program, I'm restricting my Python program to work for that particular version only. Am I clear with you?
Yes, sir.
So when you're executing the code, it will go and cross verifies whether that particular version of Python is installed on your machine or not. If that particular version of Python is installed on a machine, then it automatically calls that interpreter and then executes Python in that particular interpreter only. You don't need to shift between the interpreters. Am I clear with you?
Yes, sir.
So try to understand these particular cases very carefully. So just watch here. This line is Python version interpreter instruction. Okay. When this script of Python is executed, it searches for the relevant version of interpreter in the machine. If such version is available, then it automatically activates the corresponding version of the interpreter. Okay, and then executes the code. Okay, next point is if that version is not available, then raises an error. Okay, am I clear with you? So can we restrict a Python program to a particular version? Yes or no?
Yes.
So try to recognize these constructs very carefully. Okay, a very small construct, but technically important. Now you can just watch here on my machine, since that corresponding interpreter of 2, if it is available, it automatically executes through that. If it is not available, then you can just watch very carefully. It really tells you, okay, requested Python version 2 is not installed. So when we design the Python code, we can always design Python code specific to that particular piece of the version. And then we can restrict it such that that code will go and operates to that version. But the point is that version should be installed on a machine. Am I clear with you? If it's not installed, it will tell you just critically that that version is not installed. That's how when you're sending your code to your production people, especially when we are sending the code to the production people, majority of the times we can just do it. If you are expecting in a development, this code has been designed only for Python 3, then you'll simply say, okay, we just simply say like this. So when my machine is having only Python 3, why I should do it? Okay, it's your personal machine, man. I'm talking about industrial server. Okay, when your industrial production server is there, what is your guarantee that your server is having which versions? So when we send the code to the production systems, we generally send the code by keeping the version tag onto that. Am I clear with you?
sir.
So locate the construct very carefully. So now you just watch, since we said it's Python 3 as a criteria. Now you can just check out its work. Are you clear?
Yes, sir.
So for every particular program you're fundamentally writing, these are very standardized things you should always understand. Therefore, sir, on which particular version I should be operating, just up to you. And for every program when you're writing, you have to import this, because every program is one specific session of itself. At Python interpreter, when you're working directly at Python interpreter, this importing can be done only once. But when you're writing Python scripts, for every script you write, you should keep that particular criteria of the import statement, because that script, while it is executing within the session of that particular script only, that import will work. For the next script, once again, you should keep that import. So these are all the fundamental things to understand only about your criteria and composition of your print statements. Now, any language will give you greatest amount of advantage only when you can declare your variables and start working with it. So declaring the variable means you're taking the memory into your control. Okay, you're just taking the memory into your control. Be very, very clear about that. Means computer's memory is being synchronized to your ideas and activities. So anytime you want to store anything within your computer's memory through any language, we need some component called as a variable. Okay, we need a component called as a variable. So let us just try to understand the concept of the variables in Python. Now, I don't want to give you any basic definitions like what is exactly the definition of variable. It is a location where you store the required data for your program for that execution. Therefore, according to Python, variables are reserved memory locations to store operational values. So whenever you're creating any particular variable in Python, definitely we are reserving certain amount of space within your computer's memory. And the amount of memory space that is allocated by the interpreter, the amount of memory space that is allocated by the interpreter fundamentally depends on the data type of the declared values. Means whatever kind of value you give, relevant to that value, Python understands how much memory space it needs and then goes and occupies that amount of memory space directly. In other languages, what happens is, when you declare a variable, you're declaring a data type and you're fixing that particular variable with that particular size of the data type. But in Python, it's reverse. You will give a value. Your value, what you have given, needs how much amount of memory space. That amount of memory space, your Python automatically occupies in your computer's memory. Am I clear with you?
Yes, sir.
So technically, whenever you're trying to work with your Python constructs and you're trying to integrate it for your variable management, every variable, when you declare it, it technically contains some value. So that allocation of the value to your particular variable is called as assignment. So you should understand from other languages to Python what's the fundamental difference. See, try to understand something like, suppose you are in a C language. C language like environment you're working, let us say. Then always what you'll do, you'll declare you'll declare one data type first of all. You're fixing the data type. and then you're declaring the variable select by name employee number and you're giving semicolon. Now, did I give any value to this particular variable? Did I give any value to this particular variable?
No.
Definitely not. Definitely not. So, you should always understand one thing. In language like C or C++ or Java or any other language, the thing that is fundamentally happening is we are first fixing the data type provided by the language, where the language has decided to allocate memory with a fixed size of space as per the standards of the data type in design. Okay, now it is 2 bytes or 4 bytes. I don't speak on that. So that's the first thing. That's what is happening. Okay, the next what is happening is the location, the physical location. I'll make it more clear. Okay, the physical location to a memory address is captured that can exactly hold required size of the data. Okay, required size of the data. Are you getting me? Now, to that physical location where you have identified the address, the compiler is tagging this identifier name, which is a variable name. Okay, it's tagging the identifier name to the memory address where such data values can be stored. Now, we did not assign any data. Therefore, what is happening now? The value in assignment is a garbage. These all things are happening, whether it is language like C or it's a C++ or Java, that doesn't matter. So in Java, maybe you don't have garbages, you have some defaults. Okay, that's creditly language to language, things can change. Therefore, in languages like C and C++ and Java, if we declare a variable, do we need to definitely give one initial value to that particular variable? Do we need to give the initial value to that variable compulsorily?
No.
In C, C++, and Java or other languages?
Yes. It has-
Hello?
No, sir.
Definitely not. Okay. So we don't need to, okay, just watch carefully. We do not have to definitely assign the initial values. Okay, we don't have that headache here. When you come to your Python, So whenever you're working with the Python language, you will also declare variables here. Be very clear about that. But we directly call the variable with a name, and you cannot leave the variable here directly. Why? Because this variable is now preparing itself to pick up the data type, because a variable cannot exist in the memory without a data type. So this variable has to definitely identify itself in the memory to some memory location with an identified data type with a value. Therefore, in Python, you have to definitely take a variable assigned with some value. So you should always understand one thing. This value in assignment is instructing Python interpreter to finalize, appropriate data type that is suitable as per this value. Okay, whatever value you have given, in relevance to that particular value, the data type will be decided. So what is happening in Python now? Here also memory allocations are done. Okay, Python interpreter finds a relevant memory location in the computer, captures its address, and tags the address to the name of the variable and instructs the memory location to have a reference of a data type that can handle the current size of the value in assignment. Now, say like at this level, my memory is associated to an integer. Then later when I give some value which cannot be handled by the integer, the same memory location will get extended to handle that particular value by that data type that is essential. Are you getting me? So whether your values are coming by design time or the values are coming by runtime, that variable is always dynamic to handle the data type by its nature of the size of the value. Am I clear with you?
Yes, sir.
Am I clear with you?
Yes,
So it is continuously cross verifying the size of the value what you are giving, and in relevant to the size of the value, the data type will be automatically getting referenced here. Am I clear?
yes,
So here we have one note. The note is what? Every variable we declare in Python should be definitely assigned with a value. Okay, Any value, it could be 0 also not an issue, it is a negative number not an issue, but you should assign a variable with a value, because only your assignment of the value will tell the variable should have which data type. Am I clear with you? Therefore, you declare a variable and you don't assign any value, Python will give you an error. Be very, very clear about that. Now, the second point is, if we have a scenario where we cannot fix a value currently, then assign with none. Okay. We have one predefined keyword from Python called as none. You can just give that none, and you're saying that I want this memory location to be allocated, but I exactly do not know what is the size of the value I will give. So you keep none. It's none is not equal to garbage. Are you getting me? So technically, I exactly do not know what is my value and what is the data I will be handling at later stages. I think this none is looking like a concept of declaring a pointer and then allocating the value at the later stages. Am I correct? So try to recognize these particular factors very clearly. So Python's standardizations have to be understood. If you do not understand the standardizations, you get confused. Therefore, if Python says that you have to assign the value, there is a meaning why Python is saying that you should declare a variable with assignment. Are you catching the point? Though blindly you cannot capture these constructions. So are you understand the second point what we are discussing? In Python, variables do not need explicit declaration to reserve the memory space. Means in Python, we don't declare any data type for the sake of the variable at any point of time to tell how much memory space you need. In languages like C, we will allocate the memory space by declaring the explicit data type. In Python, we always allocate the memory space by the value what we assign. Am I clear with you? Therefore, the declaration of a Python variable happens automatically when we assign a value to the variable. So you should understand, in languages like C, if you declare this, your variable declaration has been completed, yes or no? But in Python, if suppose say like you say like this, it's not a variable. So as far as Python is concerned, a variable declaration will not happen just because you declared a name somewhere in the program. Suresh, I think you have to just wait for the discussions to complete. Okay. If seriously Python is having, if a programmer loses control on operations by giving a data type control to the language, then why the Python will be a trending language in the world? I think there are many number of applications that are seriously moving by Python today. So wait. So when you're trying to work with your criteria of the process, you need to always understand, in Python, if you declare anything like this, it's not a variable. But in other languages, anything you fundamentally declare like this is a variable. Are you catching the point? But how Python can understand that it should become a variable? Only when you make an assignment with some value. It could be any value. It could be 10. It could be 0. It could be none. But only after the assignment to that variable is done, then Python interpreter recognizes that as a variable and then decides how much memory space has to be allocated. According to Python, Your equal sign is used to assign the values to the variables. Variable assignment fundamentally eliminates the previous value, making room for the new value. You know that one variable can carry only one single value at a time. See, you're following every point what I'm discussing seriously. Day by day, as we are going down and we complete the topics, you'll totally get your idea of how you can manage your projects and how you can start involving yourself into the projects, man. So project is not a rocket science, I'm telling you. Even if you do a project, you don't know the concepts of the language, what wonders will happen? Do you agree with me? So project is not a rocket science. What, see, project is what? When project is a collection of programs, program is a collection of statements. Now when you cannot write statements by analysis, statements by criterially involving yourself into the rule of that analysis that is expected, now how you can think that you can really do your project? So keeping your craziness on the project is not important. At the basics, how best you can understand your language is more important. So what majority of the students will do is they just don't keep their concentration on the criteria of learning the basics and the fundamentals and the concepts effectively. And later on, they will say like, sir, I'm unable to write a program. You cannot write your program until your concepts are not clear. So keep your concentration to the rule of the therefore, one variable when it is assigned with a value, it automatically eliminates that particular variable with the previous value. Therefore, can we do multiple assignments with respect to your criteria of the values in Python? Yes, we call that as cascading style. So Python also allows, like other languages, multiple assignments. So Python fundamentally can make multiple variables to associate with a single value. So when this kind of assignment is done, what is happening? Python actually creates an object with that particular piece of the value, and all your variables are expected to see that location where that object is available. And in Python, we can always assign multiple objects to multiple variables also. So Python's memory management criteria is technically something that's very interesting. See, finally, you do it in any way, computer memory is standardized. So I just want you to catch up through the criteria. See, I declared anything like in my Python, now say like in this, I'm just declaring one variable. Just now, as I said, that's the declaration you have done. Now, what is actually happening in the Python applications namespace? Okay, but every application you have its own namespace. Namespace in the sense the criteria of its own private memory allocation space. That we call as its namespace. So if say like I'm saying this is Now this is your Python's namespace, let us say. Then what is actually happening is Python is allocating some memory location. And every memory location will be having its own address. So in this location, what it is doing is, okay, so select this is the address. This is some address where you are actually keeping that data. So you did something like this in your program. Actually, what happened in your program is this assignment in your programming environment of Python was treated like this. It was tagged like this. Are you getting me? So the programmer is seeing this. Try to understand. Means as a programmer, you're always seeing this. So the programmer is actually referencing the variable name. Am I clear with you? Now internally, this is referencing this address. And in turn, at runtime, you're hitting this memory location. You're hitting that memory location. And you're trying to get that particular piece of the data. Are you catching the constructs? So now let us understand. Currently, my data is 1, 2, 3, 4. Internally, it is identifying it's an integer location. So the data type inferencing is done by the Python integrated internal architecture. Now we are not keeping a head into that. Therefore, in Python, the programmer need not really care what is exactly the kind of data type it is operating with. So current scenario is this. Now, here the question that can come from a experienced person is, so later on if my value is changing, what happens? That's what I want to check. Okay. Now watch carefully this memory location. I'll just try to pick it up. Now previously this employee number is operating for which particular data type, like integer. Now let me say that I'm giving my employee number in the next level as 1234.56. Now I think definitely this is not a integer. Do you agree with me? So it's not trying to do another allocation once again. This is just another assignment you have done. So rather than converting this memory location into a criteria of the float, what happens is, without your knowledge, it is finding out another memory location where you can keep this value and then this address will be changed to the same name in your program. In your program, wherever you have declared this variable, to that same name, this new address is allocated. This new address is allocated. Am I clear with you? So the same variable is working for two different kinds of values very properly or not? So your memory references are shifting here. Your memory references are shifting here. Is a variable is changing? No. But suppose like you're working in C or C++ or Java, for handling float, you need another variable. To handle integer, you need another variable. Am I correct? Because of this, what is happening? The number of variables are increasing by names. Now, because the same memory location, means the same memory location with the same name has just shifted its memory reference, after some time, what happens? This memory address will be collected by garbage and it is eliminated. Am I clear with you? So try to understand these cases very carefully, man. Now, I don't know when people think that they are really having experience and everything, they need this kind of thought process or not. But to understand a language, you should think like this, else you'll never understand. What you'll understand, whatever points I told you here. So when you're doing multi-value assignment to variables, multi-value assignment means when you're taking multiple variables and you're assigning with one single value, what is happening? That I'll give you as a picturization in my next level of the class. Single variable declarations and reassignments, how they are happening. Are you clear? Are you clear? So variables are not changing always. Variables are not changing always. On the same variable, we are trying to operate and associate with the criteria and composition of changing that particular memory reference. That's all. Only the memory references are changing. Am I clear with you? Feeling comfortable or inconvenient? Keep that spirit with you. Tomorrow I'll give you the visualization towards how multivariable value assignments are taken. Try to look into that, okay? Now, for all the people who are joining the sessions who are new, you can access all the previous classes from my YouTube channel, man. Okay, the demo classes are available within the YouTube channel. You can go there and look into it. Okay. So if you're feeling that you missed any class, you can directly get into the YouTube channel, and there you can see these demo sessions what are recorded and they are uploaded. Sriram, Edit Plus can be free for only 30 days, but after that also you can utilize it. Okay, it only tells you please register, else continue. That's all. You don't need to worry about that. Got it? And in my YouTube, you can find the videos by the sequence of the classes 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll be having like that. You please look into those particular videos. Else you should share your mail ID. Okay, you should share your mail ID to the WhatsApp number that is there in my particular website. Then we will share the Google Drive to you for the people who are coming new. And in that you are having absolutely the installation methods. Okay, installation procedure is there in that. Please look into it. If anybody is feeling that the videos are not shared, they are already shared, but you will not get a notification every day. So you should go to your mail ID, which you have given us, and then you should go and check in the shared folder and they will be available. We don't send any notification every day. Got it? Thank you very much. Once again with you tomorrow. Have a nice day. Take care of yourself.